Deb, hi there. Thank you.
Hey Roxanne, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Hey,
good.
Roxanne.
All right, guys, straddle in, take that last drink of water. Whatever you need to do, we're gonna get started very soon. Give it one more minute.
Nice, Haley. Nice.
Haley, are you in the penalty box there, or are you on the basketball court or the hockey arena? Where are you?
So thank you for asking, Matthew. That is actually, I went to the 2017 World Winter Games for Special Olympics, and that is floor hockey. It is, I feel like it is, which Trayvon, you can step in because I know you and I both play this sport, and other athletes can as well if they want to. How I see floor hockey is it's a mix between like field hockey and ice hockey. But how we play is we play on what's considered like gym floor, and we wear regular like athletic tennis shoes like you would for like running or anything like that. And our stick, and I wish I have my stick upstairs in my room. I'm sorry.
Doesn't have a little hook on the bottom of it or something?
Yeah.
So that's actually considered our puck. So our puck is like a disc and it has a hole in the center. And our stick, on the end of our stick, it has like a fuzzy end to it. And you put the end of the stick inside of the hole of the puck and you flick with your wrist to shoot or pass or however whatever the circumstances with the sport. Actually, and that, like I said, this was back in 2017. That I know of, we still compete in floor hockey, but it's more of, they tried to switch over to more of floor ball, which is a little bit different than floor hockey. But I still do floor hockey to this day. All we do is we just practice during the week, and then we do a scrimmage game or like tournament, I guess, slash, I don't know how to say it really. But it's a really cool sport. I've been competing that sport since I was 9 years old. I'm actually turning 25 next Sunday. So I've been doing it for a very long time. It's actually one of my favorite sports to compete in personally. I also do softball, basketball, and flag football. So I am a year-round athlete, and I'm also actually on the Athlete Leadership Council. I'm a health messenger. I'm a global messenger, and I'm also on the Athlete Leadership State Council, along with Sean Conkey, who is our president. And then Michael Tom is our vice president, and then I'm the secretary for that council as well.
All right. If anybody needs anything, you know who to go to. Haley's your girl. I gotta come in and watch. I gotta come in and watch some of this hockey. I want to watch that. You know, I grew up in Minnesota, and I've been an ice hockey player for 40 years. I've been playing ice hockey, and I coach high school hockey actually. And so I'm a big fan of anything with the stick and a puck. So I got to come out and see what this is about.
Come on down to Arizona, and we'll show you. It's a really cool sport to watch.
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
Matthew, I did it last year, and I do sports also. Like Haley and I do softball, but she plays in a different, like she plays in. Isn't it surprise? It's surprise, right, Haley?
Yeah, I recently moved up. We used to live in Chandler, but now we live in. I live currently in Tullison, but I compete with Surprise, so it's a different city. But I actually do, Matthew, or whenever our training is done here, I do have a YouTube link that is actually from when I started as a 9-year-old. I did the athlete oath for that particular tournament, and it shows you like how athletes play, and the coaches are into it as well. So if you are up for that, I'm more than welcome to send you that YouTube link, and so you can watch it and kind of get a feel of what floor hockey is, and how much, not just for myself, but I know for other athletes, it's a really, like I said, it's a really cool sport. I'm just kind of a little bit of background. Just I know we can't do it everything because we're in this training. But I'm Matthew. I'm originally from California, San Diego area,
Yeah.
primarily. I've been.
But do we have some more San Diego people on the call? Is there a lot of San Diegoans?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm actually from Arizona, but I'm actually going for the Padres because I don't like the Dodgers. So
My mom's from Granada Hills.
There you go. There you go. Well, Haley, yes, please send the link. I'd love to watch it. And when we're done with the training, I'll check it out.
Okay.
yeah, Haley,
I'll-
send it to me too. I want to see it too. Okay.
Yeah, send it to me too, Haley.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get it to Saul, and Saul will get it to everybody else in a
Yeah.
timely fashion and one that makes sense. You want to take over, Saul?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we should get started, guys. We're running into our time. Matthew is also a very busy man, so I think we should get started.
That sounds good to me. Are you guys all ready for us to begin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Can you guys see the screen that I have on there? It says Special Olympics Arizona Media Training by Matthew Blades. Do you all see that?
I
Yes.
see it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I see
Well-
it too.
Well, let's go ahead and jump in. And Saul's giving me the ground rules that if you guys have a question, you want to raise your hand or you want to throw something in the chat, he's going to be mediating that. And so feel free to, jump into the chat or raise your hand if there's something that you have a question about. And we'll do our best to get through everything and jump right in. Before we start, I need to say thank you to a few special people who some may be on this call. But a few months ago, Saul and I had a really nice video chat session with Amber in Tucson, Vanessa, Laura Lee, Sean, and Connor. And all, I guess, 5 of those people were really helpful in helping me come up with the media training that I would present to you today. We asked all 5 of them a lot of questions. We got some excellent feedback from all of the athletes. And I want to tell you that Amber, Vanessa, Laura Lee, Sean, and Connor, you're really instrumental in helping me come up with this media training today. So thank you very much for contributing and giving me your thoughts and your feelings and your opinions about what you've experienced in the past. I really do appreciate that. For
You're
those,
very welcome, my friend.
For those who don't know me on this call, for 27 years, and you don't have to read this whole thing, I'll kind of sum it up, but for 27 years, I was a radio personality who had radio shows. I did television shows. I have a couple of shows that have ended up on Netflix, and I've been in the media world for close to 30 years now, and most of my day is spent hosting a podcast now and doing some motivational speaking. And so I've pivoted my life in a little bit or of a new direction, but the media is still a huge part of what I do. And so I feel really good about coming to you guys today and helping you sift through some of the obstacles, challenges, things that get in the way of any of us having a really great media interview or session with somebody surrounding the Special Olympics. So I have a goal today, and I wanted to put it on this screen, and hopefully we can achieve this goal today. But my goal for everybody on this call today is to create a media training for the athletes so that you can represent the Special Olympics in a meaningful way with regard to digital and media opportunities. So everybody kind of, if you want to just shake your head up and down, you kind of have an idea what I mean when I say digital and media opportunities. That's like interviews on television, radio, anything that would end up on YouTube, social media, something like that. Anytime where there's going to be a microphone or a camera in front of your face and they're going to be, asking you questions, we want to make sure that you're super prepared. And the reason is that because you guys are superstars in your community, and your community loves hearing from you. And if we can all be really effective communicators, then it's my opinion that that's really going to help us spread this great message about what we're doing here at Special Olympics. Does that sound good to everybody? Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Perfect. Okay. So when we were talking to the 5 folks that I mentioned earlier, we kind of discovered that there are a few different interview settings that you find yourself in from time to time. The most common was a social media or a Zoom or a YouTube or some other video format, but where somebody's there talking to you and there's either a camera or a phone or a microphone present, and whatever they're getting ready to tape or record is going to end up on social media, on YouTube, or you're being interviewed via Zoom. And so we're going to talk about each one of these things, even though they all have a lot of similar threads, but we're going to go through each one of them and talk about what needs to be in place for all of these to be successful. So let's just start with the social media, Zoom, YouTube, and other formats. You can see that we're all on Zoom right now. And you can tell that when you're on Zoom, if you have low light or you're not in a bright room or you can't be heard really well, it's going to be difficult for people to listen to the interview. And so kind of part one of executing any really good interview is, number one, making sure people can see you if there's a camera. And then number two, making sure that people can hear you. And I was saying up front that I don't normally use this microphone when I'm doing my presentations, but I did today for a very specific reason. Because if I set this microphone down here on the table, do I become harder to hear? You guys have to really listen for me. You see how challenging that is, but then I get it a little bit closer to my mouth and now you can hear every word that I say. And so one of the things that's really important is if there's a microphone present, that you get it close to your mouth so that people can hear what you have to say. And then you can see from a camera standpoint with regard to social media, Zoom and YouTube, I have I just have a little stream cam that's on my computer, but you guys see how I'm even in my shot. I'm right in the middle of my shot. There's equal distance to the left. There's equal distance to the right. There's a little bit of headroom for me to move up and down and shake, but I never go out of the frame. Even if I move a lot, I don't move out of the frame. And it's just really important, again, to look at your screen to see where you are. And you don't have to stay stuck in the middle, but I want you to get yourself centered in the middle. And then bob and weave and do the things that you need to do, because I like to talk with my hands and stuff too. I'm very expressive when I'm in these formats. So that is kind of step number one. When you're doing a social media, Zoom, or some other YouTube video where you're being interviewed by somebody, let's make sure that we can be heard. Let's make sure that we can be seen and we're really in the frame of the video screen. And so I would encourage everybody that's watching right now, who's sitting there, to try to frame yourself up in your camera. So right now, do your very best to adjust your camera in a way where you feel like you are centered in your screen and you just have a little bit of distance above your head. They can see your chest. If you have a shirt on, they can kind of see what color your shirt is. If it's a collar, they can see that. But this is just kind of step one in the whole process. This is the low hanging fruit, as I like to say. Just making sure that these little things are in place. So everybody looks like they're doing a great job. It's absolutely perfect. Paul, you're framed excellently. Roxanne framed excellently, right? There's almost everybody is framed excellently. It looks really, really, really good. Good job. So let's move on to interview setting number 2. That's where you're on site with a TV personality or camera person. Show of hands, who's been interviewed before by the news or somebody that wanted to do a story about Special Olympics? Super cool. Okay, so a lot of people have been in this position before. This is the easiest type of interview for you to execute because you don't have to do much. When you're on site with a TV personality and they have a camera person, they're going to be in charge of doing all of the things that you and I just talked about. It's going to be that camera person's job to frame you up, get you in the center of the screen, get a little bit of headroom. It's going to be the camera person's job to make sure they've got a microphone in front of your face so that you can be heard. And all you really need to do is be yourself and answer a few questions. And we're going to go through some of that stuff in a little bit. The third type of setting is where there's just audio. Who's ever heard of the word podcast before? Right? Podcasts, right? So that's radio. That's all audio. There's no images that come with it. And so what do you think is the most important? And go ahead and put it in the chat and Saul, tell me what you're seeing. But Go ahead and put it in the chat. If you're just doing an audio interview, what's going to be the most important ingredient in making sure that people can consume that or listen to that? Anybody have any guesses? And Saul, let me know what you're seeing.
Yep. We have Haley that says speak clearly. We have Paul that says your story. We have Jesse that says your voice.
Those are all really good things. And I want to just press on the voice is actually the closest answer. And it kind of goes back to what I said just a few minutes ago. If we have an audio interview, we need to make sure we're doing a good job with our sound, right? Because if we don't have good sound, it's hard to hear. So when we're in an audio interview, we want to make sure that that microphone is in a really good place for us on our body. And the best tip that I was ever given by a professional broadcaster was when you get a microphone like this or anything similar, the closer you can get it to your chin, the more you're going to be picked up. And so a lot of people like to hold the microphone way over here, but then they have to turn it way up and then we get that feedback noise. But the closer you can bring the microphone to your mouth, I actually rest this little foam piece. I actually rest that super lightly on the bottom of my chin. And that's where I tend to hold my microphone the whole time. And there's a couple of reasons that we do that. Number one, there are words that are harsh. They have harsh sounds to them. T's and P's. And if you're in a microphone, you could, if I'm gonna do this for you right now. If I say pop, 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 you hear how you get all of that explosion of the P. But if I'm here and I say pop, pop, it's not quite as aggressive. And there's certain words like words that start with P, words that start with T, where they're really harsh. And if you're you can kind of hear that in the microphone. But if I just get up here, it's a lot less. And so again, I'm just giving you very, very basic information about how to hold this microphone the best way, where it needs to be. And the reason that I'm mentioning this, guys, is because for a lot of years, I interviewed a lot of people. And what I always saw was as soon as I put the microphone in front of their face, they went and did this. You know what I mean? They backed away from the microphone. And you have to remember the purpose of this thing, which is to make sure everybody can hear you. So I don't want anybody to be shy around a microphone. It's just a tool and you're using it so that everybody can hear you, okay? So the closer it can be to your mouth, the better it's going to be. All right, let's move on to our fourth interview setting, which some of you declared that you have done an experience before, which is a really big production. Again, this kind of goes back to the TV personality and camera person where you don't have to worry about much here. Everybody else's job is to make you sound and look good. You just have to know your information. So when you're in a big production, typically you're going to get prepped ahead. And by prepped, I mean somebody's going to talk to you beforehand to go over a few things that you're going to want to make sure you say during this interview, that you articulate about Special Olympics. And then that's really where you need to be prepared. You don't need to worry again about being framed up in the shot, having the microphone too close or far away. And typically when you're in a big production or you're with the TV camera, they're going to use a different kind of microphone. Can everybody see this? I'm going to put on my big forehead. That's called a lapel microphone. Okay. Has anybody used a lapel microphone? Put your hand up in the air if you've used a lapel microphone before. Yeah. And so these are different, right? Because if they put a lapel microphone on you, you don't want to. They typically, right? They'll clip it on your shirt. You don't need to talk down into the microphone like this. This microphone right here, the lapel microphone, is actually designed to pick you up from a further distance. And so it's okay that it's down here. You don't have to speak into lapel microphones. Lapel microphones will pick up sound in a bigger radius. Does that sit well with everybody? Is that a good understanding of how this works versus this? If you want, I'll go even deeper because I'm a big nerd when it comes to audio quality, and I love this kind of stuff. But these are directional microphones, right? And so the closer you can be to them, directional sound goes right into them. These omnidirectional, where they record all around the microphone. This records right into the top of it. This is able to pick up sound from, kind of 8 to 10 inches away. And so if you're ever wearing one of these, You don't have to worry about too much. Somebody else is generally taking care of the way that that sounds. Any questions so far on the interview settings?
We have one from Haley, from the chat. She said, wouldn't you have to tell people that work the sound to lower the mic if you have a louder voice?
And that is such a great question, Haley. And I'm going to say yes. I'm really loud too, Haley, when I talk. And I always tell the person interviewing me that I speak very loudly. And so they know that they can adjust and turn things down. Without going too deep, there is some new technology that's coming out that makes it pretty much impossible to be what they call too hot on a microphone, where you like this and you can't like there's new technology where that doesn't really happen anymore. But you still need to be aware of it. So Haley, that's a great question, and I would 100% recommend that you or whoever's chaperoning you to your interview articulate that and say that to the camera person so that they know. Any other questions, Saul?
No, I think
All
that's
right.
it.
Let's keep on ripping here. We're going to go into best practices now. And this is one of these things that you guys are all athletes, so I can talk to you like athletes. You know that you have to be prepared. You know that for you to have a good game or a good match or whatever the sport you're into, there are a few things that you need to do ahead of time to make sure that when you get there, you are a superstar. You guys ever heard of the singer Celine Dion? Have you? So she has this great expression that I love, which is you don't have to be great all the time. You have to be great when it's time. And so leading up to your performance, there's a lot of little things that you can do to make sure that when you get to the moment, it's easy, right? This is why we practice. I'm a hockey coach. You guys all play sports. This is why we practice, so that when we get to the game, it's fun, it's easier. So my best practices for everybody on this call, if you're going to be doing some sort of a media interview, is number one, to show up a little early. It is so much better to be 20 minutes early than it is to be right on time or even a few minutes late. And so if you're in a place where you're trying to decide, well, if I get there now, I'm going to be there 20 minutes early, that's okay. It gives people a chance to talk to you, gives you a chance to talk to other people, gives you a chance to sort of look at the surroundings and see what's happening. And you're able to then feel a little bit more comfortable about what's getting ready to happen. So my best practices are always show up a little early, and that way you are on time. My second practice that I like to mention to everybody is that there's one of these in a room, you should assume it's recording. If you guys see microphones in a setting, you should assume that that microphone is picking up some sort of a sound and that somebody else is either listening to it or recording it. Now, the reason that's important is because sometimes you might say different things if you didn't have a microphone in front of your face. When we get a microphone in front of our face or there's a microphone in the room, we want to be just keyed into that and make sure that we're not saying anything that might get us in trouble or might be seen as or taken the wrong way. And so my general rule is if there's a microphone in the room, just assume it's recording. Number three, and we're going to talk about the highlight reel here in just a couple of moments, but Special Olympics really does a great job for you guys of breaking down what they see as the highlight reel of information that they would love to be shared with the community. And so we're going to talk about that next. Let's go to number 4. Be real, be upbeat, and don't be afraid to talk about yourself. So let's walk through all of those right now. When I say be real, what I mean is to say kind of what's in your heart and talk about things as you see them. Remember, they're interviewing you because they want your perspective. They don't want you to just use the words that somebody else would use. They honestly want to know what Jesse thinks. They want to know what Roxanne thinks. They want to know what Haley thinks. So I want to encourage you to be real and then be upbeat. What do I mean by that? We've all seen interviews where somebody's just down here and they're just answering the questions and thanks for being here. And it's really great. Gosh, I really love everything I do. Do you think people want to pay attention to an interview where somebody's kind of down like that? Right? Isn't it a lot more exciting if we're kind of upbeat and we're sort of excited about it? I mean, I look at the way that Haley talked to all of us about field hockey before we got started. We should have recorded that. Such a great interview. The excitement that she had about it, how real she was about what it takes to play. I think that stuff is just incredible. And so I want to encourage you to be real upbeat in all of your interviews. Here's the other thing I didn't put in here, and I probably should have, but you can genuinely hear when somebody's smiling. If we don't have a camera on right now, if I cover up my camera right now, can you guys kind of tell that I'm smiling right now by the way that I'm talking? Doesn't it seem like I might have a smile on my face right now? You see how you can tell those things, you can hear those things. And so I always encourage everybody to talk with a smile on their face if they can. Now, not every moment is a happy one, and so it's got to be appropriate, but when you can, I love being real, being upbeat, having a smile on my face, and just tearing it up. I mean, that's to me the most fun thing about being interviewed. And then that last one that I put in there, which is don't be afraid to talk about yourself. Don't be afraid to tell everybody a little bit about who you are, how you got to this place and what you love so much about the sports. Again, I just encourage you to remember that they're interviewing you because they want to know what you think. And so go ahead and put that out there. Let's get to number 5. Go slow. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I saw in my almost 30 years of interviewing people on the radio and television, is that sometimes when we see those cameras and the microphones, we tend to get a little tense and we tend to talk really fast because we're just kind of nervous and we just want the whole thing to be over. And we think that the faster that we talk, the faster the interview will go. Well, it's not really the case, is it? So go slow during that interview. Take your time. Make sure people can hear what you have to say. And if it's my general rule of the whole thing is if I feel like I'm talking slow, I'm probably talking perfect because I'm not rushing. And here's the other thing about most interviews that you guys are going to record. And I mean, probably, and Saul, you might be able to tell me this, but I'm going to guess 90 to 95% of the opportunities that you experience, they're recorded for playback later.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you instead of unmuting myself, but
Oh, okay.
I would say so. A lot of our opportunities would be pre-recorded.
Cool. So that's really great for you guys for that next reason right there, because if you mess up, just keep going, just reset and just keep going. So many of us think that if we mess up our words and we say the wrong thing, like the interview's over, and that's just not the case. I have had a number of people that I've been interviewing and they have answered a question for me. The answer didn't come out the way that they thought it would. And they've simply said to me, I don't know if I like the way that came out. Can you ask me that question again so I can answer it differently? And that is perfectly acceptable. That is a perfectly acceptable thing to ask somebody who's interviewing you. Could you please ask me that question so that I could answer it differently? That's allowed. And they can fix all that stuff later. They'll take everything, all that little space where you were having that conversation, they'll cut it all out and it'll end up looking like a polished, perfect piece at the end of it. Okay. So go slow during that interview. If you mess up, just reset, just be real with that person interviewing and tell them, I don't like the way I answered that. Can I answer that again? And they're going to say yes. My last 2 are really important. Enjoy yourself. And I always like it when people say hi to somebody who might be listening. And I think you guys would love to say hello to some of your friends too. And so after the interview is kind of being conducted and starting to wind down, I think it's perfectly acceptable to say hello to somebody if you'd like. And then that last one on there is so important, which is to say thank you to your reporter and say thank you to your cameraman. Okay. Both people need to be thanked in this regard, not just the person that was interviewing you, but the person who was holding the camera, the person who was holding the microphone for you, who might have set up your microphone. And it's just simple. Just walk up to them and say, hey, thank you so much for being my camera person today. Thank you so much for being my interviewer today. Those little things go a long way. All right, let's keep on trucking. Anybody have any questions after that one, Saul?
No questions, just comments.
I love it. Let's hear them. If they're valid and they keep us going, for sure.
Yeah, just being enthusiastic, positive, and
Yeah.
going. A lot of agreeing with certain people. So I think everybody is on the same page right now.
That's great. I see that Kevin has his hand in the air.
So, I don't know if you guys saw um, the message that I sent, but in 2018, I got to interview Archie Bradley, the Diamondbacks pitcher or old pitcher. He's not with the Diamondbacks anymore, but I got to interview him, so I thought that was really cool. And they said that I did a good job on interviewing him. So I love to be interviewed. Or I would like to interview someone, and I like to be interviewed because I think I do a really good job at it.
Yeah. Good for you, buddy. Good for you. All right. Well, let's keep pushing on. And now we're going to kind
Sorry
of.
about that, Matthew.
No, it's great. I appreciate you telling me that, because you're not always being interviewed, right? Sometimes you're going to be the interviewer, and that is something to talk about. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation where they might ask you guys to ask some questions to each other. And I think that's cool that you've done that before, Kevin. And so you can be helpful to anybody who experiences that. When it comes to the basics, we've already talked about the microphone and how to use this microphone and why it needs to be close to our microphone, why it needs to be close to our mouth rather. And then the other thing is, the reason that I keep it on my chin, as we talked about before, so you can see my mouth. There's a lot of people that put the microphone in front of their mouth, which is nice. It gives you a good sound, but you can't really see my face anymore. And so we want to make sure that these microphones are down so that you can see my face, so you can see when I smile. Here's the next one. Which camera do I look at? Has anybody ever been doing an interview and there's been more than one camera pointed at you and you're just not sure where you should look? Yeah. You will experience that.
With me.
Yeah, you will experience that, especially in these bigger productions, or if you're going to be on a television show or something like that, where you're going to be interviewed. And so here's the thing that I want to tell you about cameras. From your vantage point, from your perspective, you don't have to worry about the camera too much. It's not really your job to look at the camera. It's the camera person's job to look at you. Does that make sense to everybody? You can be helpful. And if you can see the microphone or you can see the camera and you want to look towards a camera, that's okay occasionally. But for the most part, I want you guys to remember that the camera person's job is to get you in the frame and to get you looking in a way where everything looks good and it kind of comes off all right. Okay. So I mentioned which camera do I look at to tell you that you don't need to worry about that all the time. Let the camera people do their job. You just know your information and you talk about it and trust that the right camera will turn on and get you from the proper angle when it's needed. That makes sense to everybody? Awesome. What if I put this in here because I have this happen to me a lot, but what if you show up to an interview and you really have something you're excited to talk about? You think that would be an okay thing to communicate to the camera person or the folks that are interviewing you? Thumbs up. Yeah, I do. I think it's really important. This goes back to being real. So if you're showing up to an interview and there's something that you really want to make sure you articulate about the day, you want to say about the day, I think it's okay to communicate that to your camera person and to your interviewer, even if it's just a small thing. But if you're excited to talk about something, make sure they know about it. Here's the next one. And this one's the scary space for a lot of people, but how do you answer a question that you don't know the answer to? Has anybody ever had this happen before where they've asked you a question you didn't know the answer? So put it in the chat or unmute yourself. What have you typically done in the past? Who's had that happen to them before? And how did you recover? How did you deal with that situation? Does anybody want to talk, or do you just want to throw it in the chat?
We have Haley first, and then we can go to Kevin after Haley.
Let's do it.
So I have been actually interviewed multiple times by ESPN because I was a part of the world when I went to Austria. They interviewed me at least twice. And I do remember there was some questions that they asked me that I had no idea how to answer. So how I think for me personally, it was just in my brain, I was thinking like, okay, like what should I say? What should I do? And in the moment, I was telling myself like, just calm down, reset yourself, think about what you want to say, and also like, and what was cool about it too was my coaches or people that I was close with were in the room like behind like the cameraman. So like if, for example, if I didn't know anything, I would just like have and what was cool about it too was in ESPN especially was good about they would just say, okay, like we can take a couple minutes, like take a break so you can have like the thoughts to yourself, or you can ask your coaches or at your own or think about it, and we can go back to that particular little segment that they wanted to interview me for. So I mean personally I thought that was kind of cool because I had never really seen that before. Because I'm more of a sports person as well. So I don't, man, I know a lot of people can see this too, is it's like you only see so much of what the interview that these particular athletes or coaches, get interviewed for. And you don't really see the behind the scenes until you're actually like a part of it. So that's just kind of how I've seen it, is how like they let you like just kind of let you breathe, kind of get back to your composure, and just basically figure out like what to say, and then just say it the way that you would do it during your interview.
So Haley's method is to just pause and take a break and reset. Okay. So what about, did you say Sean was second?
We have Kevin and then Trayvon after Kevin.
All right.
So I got interviewed one time, and it was a at Goodwill that's like right down the street from me, and I was getting interviewed there, and they asked me like, why do you want to work here? And I said a wrong answer, which probably wasn't good, but I mean, I'm not, if somebody asks me to interview someone, like I'll be like, hey, do you want to interview this person? I would totally be down for that. Like, I would totally be like, oh yeah, of course, it'd be really cool to kind of do that. But I mean, I've gotten it's fun to be interviewed, and especially like when you're looking for a job, like they'll be like, oh, why do you want to work here? I'll be like, because I love the company. And I actually got interviewed at my job, and they at Star, and they said that oh, why do you want to work here? And I said, because I like the people and stuff like that. But I didn't get picked just because people were it was a hard decision. But yeah, so anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, so let's make sure we're staying on this question, which is when somebody asks you a question that you don't know, what in Kevin, in that case, what do you do? If you've been asked a question that you don't know the answer to, what's your skill set? What is the thing that you use to help you in that situation?
Sometimes I get nervous, so I don't really know what to say.
Awesome. That's why we're here. Okay. So let's go on to like Sean or Roxanne. What's your tool when somebody asks you a question you don't know?
I would always tell them that let me look it up so I can answer or get some answers for you, and I'll get back to you on that.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. Roxanne, what do you want to say?
I get nervous if I don't know the question. I actually think about what I'm going to say.
Yeah. All right. Now let me ask you a question, and show of hands, just put your hands in the air. How many of you are Google? Right? None of us are Google. None of us are Google. We don't have to know all of the answers. We do not need to know the answer to every single question that somebody asks us. And it is 100% acceptable to use these 3 words right here. I don't know. That is okay to say to somebody asking you a question. If you genuinely do not know the answer to a question, it is 100% acceptable to say, I don't know. And I really like what Sean says. Can you give me a minute? I'd like to go talk to somebody and maybe find an answer. Or can you give me a second? I want to talk to my, my mom or my dad or my friend and see if they know the answer to this question. I just want to encourage you that you don't need to be nervous if somebody asks you a question you don't know. You can simply keep breathing and try to work around it. Sometimes you get asked that question and you don't know it for a second, but if you just paused for a few moments, the answer kind of comes to you a little bit. And so that's another tool that I want you to put in your toolbox, which is just take a few seconds. Sometimes I'll be interviewed and somebody will ask me a question and I'll say, that's a really good question. Let me think about my answer for just 1 second. And then I'm ready to answer. That's only 4 seconds. That's only 4 seconds. And like I said earlier, they're going to cut all that stuff out. Nobody's ever going to see it. So you don't have to worry about those things. And so I just want to encourage you, if you don't know an answer to a question, it is okay to say, I don't know, or sit there for a few minutes, try to think about it, or reach out to somebody who might know the answer, and then we can keep moving on. All right. The last one on my list is our lead into our next slide, which is to master our highlight reel. Show of hands here on our training today. How many people kind of understand what a highlight reel is? Yeah, a lot of people. It's like the best, right? It's like if we have a game and we score 4 goals, do you think those 4 goals might show up on a highlight reel? Right? Because they're kind of they're the most exciting moments of the game. They're the biggest moments of the game. And Special Olympics is actually really clear on a few different copy points that they really like for people to understand and know about Special Olympics. And I'll tell you all, does anybody know who this guy is?
Yeah, that's my friend Brian Jansen. I know him.
So I met him when I was at the Special Olympics golf tournament, and he was one of the people who was unbelievable with the highlight reel talking points. He really knows a lot about the Special Olympics, and I'm going to assume that a lot of you know a lot about the Special Olympics.
I do too.
Yeah, right. That's what makes us all bond, right? And so I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I put 6 copy points that no matter where you go on any Special Olympics website, blog post, social media, it doesn't matter what Special Olympics is doing, these 6 things tend to show up more than any other copy points, if you will, that they talk about. And so I want to rip through these with you guys so that you understand what they all are, and maybe we can talk about it. But the first one on this highlight reel is our disabilities fade away and our abilities are front and center. You see that a lot with the Special Olympics. And I'm mentioning that because you can use this information to answer questions. If somebody asks you a question like, why do you love competing in the Special Olympics? You might be able to say or use this copy point and grab some information from it and say, I like it because everybody's disability fades away and everything we can do is front and center. You see what I've done there? I've taken that little copy point that's important to the Special Olympics. I put it into my own words and I've answered her question. You may have been asked this question before by an interviewer. How many different sports are available? Has anybody ever been asked that question before? Right? And you can use this highlight reel copy point. You can say, we play 30 different sports, everything from gymnastics to soccer to golf to swimming, you name it. We play it. And yet when, again, I've just taken that highlight reel copy point and I've used it to answer the question. And the reason that this is important in terms of the Special Olympics is because they've got a really important message that they're trying to spread to our world. And you are really the vessel for helping them communicate that. You're the person who's here to help them communicate that. And the more people who understand that there's 30 sports available, the more people we can probably include. Would you guys agree about that? Because if we only play soccer and basketball and swimming, well, if I don't do any of those 3 things, I might feel like I can't be included. But to know that there's 30 sports available to me, now I feel like maybe there's something I can do. So that's why that's so important. Here's another great copy point and a highlight reel from the Special Olympics. There's 200 million people with intellectual disabilities, and our goal is to reach every one of them and their families. So I put this copy point in here because this is a one thing that you can use to help people who don't know much about the Special Olympics understand why the Special Olympics is so important. If this only were true for 5 or 6 people, we wouldn't pay attention to it. But there's more than 200 million people, that's a lot, who could use the services of Special Olympics, who could benefit from being a Special Olympian. And so we need to let folks know that there is a large number of people out there, and all of them could benefit from being a part of Special Olympics. Here's the next copy point. Again, you're going to have this. Saul's going to give this to you, and I encourage you to master these 6 highlight reel copy points and find ways to answer them. Who's ever been asked in an interview, what kinds of stuff does Special Olympics do? Right? That's a good question. And here's another highlight reel opportunity for you to answer with one of their copy point. Well, we do a lot of things. We're more than just sports. We do trainings. We do competitions. We do health screenings nearly every weekend. There's so many neat things that are happening at the Special Olympics, and they're not just about the sports. So helping people understand that is going to be really critical to the success of Special Olympics and keeping moving this whole train forward. The 5th one. There's so many volunteer opportunities here at the Special Olympics. We can always use members from our community, including police officers, celebrities, firefighters, other dignitaries, other Special Olympians. And I put this copy point in there because I want you to understand that for the folks who aren't or who are not a Special Olympian, we still want to help. We still want to be involved. We love hanging out with you guys. We love being a part of what's happening here. And we just want to know how we can be a part of the action too. And so if you're being interviewed and somebody says, how could somebody get involved with the Special Olympics? You have a good answer. You can say, well, we have so many volunteer opportunities here at Special Olympics. We can use police officers. We could use celebrities. We could use firefighters. You see again how I'm using that copy point to answer the question. And that the reason that we're doing this, by the way, guys, is so that you don't have to overthink this stuff. Sometimes we tend to overthink things. You don't need to. They are giving you great information right here on the Special Olympics. And finally, I put this in here because it's really cool. And like I just said a moment ago, people really want to get involved and they want to know how they can help. If somebody says, how could I help the Special Olympics? You can say, well, we've got so many fundraising opportunities coming up. And then if that's going to be one of the questions that you're answered or asked rather, I'd love for you to be able to know an event that's coming up that you can speak to. So Saul, could you give me an idea of really anything? It doesn't need to be anything extravagant, but something that's coming up in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks. That would be an opportunity to fundraise.
Perfect. So we have our fall games, which is our state swim, bocce, and softball coming up next week.
Okay, I'm writing that down. Writing this down so that I can answer this right. Okay, so you're talking to the interviewer and they say, how can people help out if they want to? And you say, well, we've got so many fundraising opportunities. In fact, in just a couple of weeks, we've got our fall situation where swim, bocce ball, and softball are all going to be competing. And that's an opportunity for us to make some money or to fundraise, if you will. You get that? Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. It's cool to be able to answer the question. Yeah, we have a lot of fundraising opportunities available. It's even cooler and even more important if you can really zero in on something that's happening, and it doesn't need to be big. We've got an opportunity in 3 weeks with this, and then people can really grab onto that and be a part of it. What do you want to add to that, Saul?
Terry has her hand up. I think she wanted to add something.
For NASCAR coming up too.
Yeah, right. There you go. So being aware of what's coming up for the Special Olympics and understanding what fundraising opportunities are out there for folks to be a participant in is really something that you should key in on as a Special Olympic athlete, and you should know what's happening and understand how you can try to spread that message for everybody else. Any questions after that? I see Kevin's got his hand up. So does Zach.
We'll go with Zach first. I think Kevin's hand's been up. Go ahead, Zach.
So, I know I have a unique point of view on Special Olympics because I've also seen the darker side of Special Olympics because it is a thing, and it's from what I've experienced, it's all parents because it's an outside source, you can't. So, because that is part of my experience, I don't know if that would be a good thing to say in interviews and stuff like that.
Well, my question to you would be, what do you want to articulate? What would be important for you to vocalize or verbalize in that instance?
It's just in my idea, the parents that ruin it. It's just this, in my view, it's just like Little League, where it's the parents ruin it. Because I've heard some things, like I'm at the borderline of autism because early intervention helps. But I've been told that I don't belong because, like, I've been told that I should be doing typical sports even though I technically can't still because I fight with the refs too often.
Well, we all have our own experiences, and we certainly see some things that aren't always positive. I get that. I guess when it comes to interviews, when it comes to media settings where you're being asked a series of questions and you're representing something bigger than yourself, the little things that happen to us specifically, I believe, can kind of go by the wayside. I don't know that they're ultimately the most important thing in that interview moment. Is there a way for you to be truthful, to be real, and to say, well, we have some parents who are tough, but by and large, most things are good. Listen, I'm somebody who doesn't get worked up about those types of things. I think it's just truthful. It's okay. And here's the truth of the matter, Zach, is that parents are a problem in every sporting arena, not just the Special Olympics. And so that's kind of something that's a universal truth for a lot of people. And so if anything, it's almost a little bit of a connection point for them. So I don't want you to shy away from it, but what we do have to be super careful about is that we are, again, going back to that whole upbeat, real, is that we're trying to answer these questions and get people information in a way where they can make different decisions about the Special Olympics. We're trying to be inclusive. We're trying to bring people to the party. And so if you were throwing a party, you might talk about all the good things that are going to be at the party. You wouldn't say, hey, come to this party. There's going to be some really awful parents here who aren't very nice. And there's going to be some other mean people here. And then, by the way, this might happen. You know what I'm saying? You probably wouldn't focus on those things so much. You might lean into, and I'll go back to it, your highlight reel and these 6 bullet points that are right here. And so while you've had your individual experience and some of them haven't been great, I would encourage you to lean into the highlight reel, to lean into the things that are positive that are happening at Special Olympics. And remember that each one of you is kind of like a host of a party, and you're trying to bring people to your party. And so what can you say to them that will help them or make them want to be a part of what's happening here? And Zach, I don't want to discount your situation because there's certainly a time and a place to deal with those things. It may just not be while we're on the camera being interviewed and talking to, ABC or ESPN if you're Haley. Does that make sense, Zach?
That's fine. I use the parents as fuel to beat the other team. So I changed it into a positive. So
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Oh, you got to, so basically, if they say, hey, is there anything that you would like to change in Special Olympics? I can then say, well, I like the parents to be as inclusive as Special Olympics is. Would be a good way to say that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You know what? We have some parents, they get a little bit too involved, but mostly they're there because they love us. That's a nice way to say that. It's a good way to announce what's happening, but not make it into a big spectacle because, you know, the problem, not the problem, it's not a problem that you want to bring this stuff up, but the truth of the matter is that we have a limited amount of time, and the parent problem takes hours to talk about. We can't do that in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And so I like that you've turned it into a positive. Sean, do you want to ask a question? Or Haley is, I don't know who is next, Saul.
I guess Sean can go, and then Haley.
I was gonna say one of our big events that we could easily talk to is, but it's already passed. But we could always talk to people about our Breakfast with Champions.
100%. You can always, and you know who does the best job of this? Politicians. Politicians walk into every interview knowing what they want to say, what they want to communicate. And oftentimes somebody will ask them a question. They won't even answer the question what they asked, right? They just lean into their talking point. So that's a great thing to note. Saul, just so I'm being respectful of everybody's time, how much are we allotted here? We about to wrap up in a few?
Yeah, we're probably gonna wrap up in a few. So if
Okay.
we want to do Haley and Paul, and then we can wrap it up. Haley, you want to go next?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't know if Matthew wanted to talk first, or I wasn't sure. Well, I just kind of have it's more of a comment really than really a question. I personally, like I showed you in the chat, I have a few times have been interviewed by ESPN, but how I kind of, it's not really on like how to deal with really more of an interview. How I have been doing, like how explain to people on what Special Olympics is like on the outside, like people either at work or like, for example, places that I know, like I have friends that work at different, grocery stores, stuff like that. I usually just kind of explain to them like what it is, like what Special Olympics is, because most people don't know what it is, like as an organization as a whole. And then I kind of lean into where, what sports I compete in. And like, for example, like floor hockey, like I did with you, Matthew, is I just kind of break it down, kind of explain to them what floor hockey is, because a lot of people don't know what that is. And then I just kind of go into more of like the volunteer opportunities. So kind of like what Sean was saying with like Breakfast with Champions. I talk about, the tournaments and how, you can volunteer at these events, and, it's a really cool opportunity for you to learn, I guess I wouldn't really call it like the magic of Special Olympics, but it's like the positivity that not just us athletes bring, but like the coaches, and like some of the staff members can even, there's times where I've seen some staff members like be positive about it and kind of show the volunteers like this is what it is, like this is what us athletes try to highlight to kind of show people like what we are as an organization.
That's great. That's great. All right. I have one last slide that I'd love to go over really quickly if I can, Saul, and then we can kind of wrap up. But this isn't so much for you guys, but it is for the people that are in your life that help you in your situations, getting to and from, who are going to be chaperones. I remember when I was with Brian, right? We had his mom and his dad were right there, and they were right next to him when he was doing most of his action. And so I just want to bring this up to talk about it, because it is important to understand that I understand that people get nervous. I understand that the mere presence of a microphone and a camera can make somebody really nervous. And so I'm going to encourage you to just breathe. Take 3 deep breaths and get into your body a little bit, and then you'll be ready to go. I think that the folks around you can help you with that. They could come up to you and they could say, Roxanne, I can see you're nervous. Let's just breathe. We're going to be okay. Here's the second thing that I think your friends can help you do. They can help you by scheduling these interviews in a familiar setting. They can go over the questions with you prior to the interview. You could get there early, like I said, and meet the media personality who's going to interview you, because if you can have a little bit of a dialogue with them prior, that's really going to help your interview be a little bit more cohesive. The next 2 on this list are to make sure you guys go over that highlight reel of the 6 bullet points that are the most important things. And Saul can help you with this. Saul is a great guy who can send you, hey, you're getting ready for this interview. Here's 3 things that I really want to make sure you hit. in the interview. We've got our fall situation coming up, or we've got this coming up. Let's really make sure we talk about those things. And then the last one on this list is for your chaperones, but it is to help you guys out the most. And I pulled this directly from the Special Olympics website. And it's the idea that folks who are interviewing you need to understand these really basic things. And I'm going to guess that these are in here because they've happened to people before. Somebody's treated you like a child and you're not, you're an adult. Somebody has tried to talk really slow because they think you don't understand. It's like, I understand perfectly. You don't have to talk slow to me. Drawing boundaries is important, right? I get that some people want to be inquisitive and ask questions, but again, I ask you to remember that we're in an interview setting right now, and there's a time and a place for everything. And then your chaperones can also help articulate to the media personality that give you guys, the athletes, give you a minute to find your answer, give you a few seconds there. Don't try to put words into your mouth. Give you a second to speak your mind and be clear about what you want to say. And then finally on this list, I know that, and it's been my experience every time I've been on with you guys, you have a million great questions that you want to ask. And I want to encourage you to keep going down that road, right? It's okay to have a lot of questions, but again, just remember that when we're in that interview setting, it may not be the most appropriate time for all of those questions to get answered. And again, those are things that I'm going to ask your chaperones to handle. Those are things that I want to ask your parents to handle. These aren't your responsibility. I think that those are things that the folks around you can help you manage a little bit better. So that's a wrap on what I've got for you today. Actually, I had a little bit more, but that's okay. We didn't get to it. I really enjoyed this session. Is there anybody that has any final questions or things that they would like to ask before we take a break? And that's okay if you don't. We covered a lot of ground today. Again, just remember your absolute basics, guys. Remember, if there's a microphone in the room, it might be recording. If you're going to be on the video, let's get framed up. Let's put that microphone right there on our chest and make sure that we can be heard. When we're being interviewed, let's look at our interviewer. All of those things really matter. And then most importantly, let's make sure we understand what we want to say so that when we get onto the camera, we feel really comfortable with everything that we're doing.
Matthew, we have one question and then I think we'll be good to log off.
Okay.
Zach.
Hit me, Zach.
So, I see the mic that you're using. I'm a sound person as well. Is like what type of mic? Like cardioid, dynamic, ribbon mic? Would you recommend for, like, let's say I'm trying to make a podcast kind of thing, you know?
Well, I use dynamic mics because they're the most universal. This is like, everybody's seen this microphone before, you know, that's a Shure SM58. It's the most basic microphone that they make, but you have to have a mixer to use it. There are other microphones out there that are USB now that you can use, that you can plug right into your computer, that can help you have a little bit better sound. And that's a great question, Zach, because when you're on Zoom, the other thing that you can do to be really, really helpful, and you don't have to do it when you're just on a regular call, but when you're being interviewed, is if you can have headphones on, because that outside noise does actually bleed back into the microphone. And so the more that you can keep the environment quiet, the better you will be able to be understood. So mics are a total preference for me. Zach, I've probably used everything from a $100 microphone, which was what this is, to a $50 microphone, to a $4,000 Neumann microphone, right? Which is what they use at NPR, and they sound
We also use that in the
incredible.
recording studio, so
That's exactly right.
we
That's
also use
exactly right.
We've also used $5,000 mics before.
Yeah,
too,
right,
so.
right. Yeah. And they sound incredible, but they're not for every situation, and they certainly have their time and place. But yeah, microphones are getting really, really interesting. And now you can just plug them into your computer via USB, which is just incredible. It's not professional broadcast quality kind of sound, but it sounds night and day over what your laptop would pick up. Great question.
Paul, did you have something to say before we log off?
Yeah, I was thinking about that I think some of us were on it with the guy from, I think, CBS Sports Radio, and we were doing a training with him, and he was saying when we do a story with the guy, we should tell him our personal story. And I remember that from when we were doing our session yesterday. Like if we're health messengers, we should mention our health messenger, and we should mention our story because they want to hear about us.
Yeah, you guys, and that's a great place to kind of wrap us up too, Saul. It's like you all are so incredible, and your story is so awesome, and it inspires a lot of people, and that's the reason that they're putting a microphone and a camera in front of your face. I go back to what I said earlier. They want to know what you think. They want to know what you bring to the table. And so don't ever lose sight of that. Don't ever jump on a microphone and feel like you need to be somebody else. You can just be you.
All right, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Matthew, I want to thank you for coming on and educating us and giving us some tips on how to better prepare ourselves for media interviews. So my guys, if we can give Matthew a round of applause. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming by,
guys.
Matthew.
Thank you again, Matthew, for joining us again.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
I'll tell you very honestly, I've been a little bit sick this week, but I've been looking so forward to this, and you literally have just fueled me up in a way where I feel on top of the world, and I love the energy that's on this call, and I thank Saul for asking me to be a part of it, and Deb, thank you for helping articulate all my thoughts and feelings, and everybody else, and from Zach to Paul to George, Trayvon, and everybody else, I just wish you nothing but the best, and if I can be helpful, Saul knows how to reach me.
It's nice to meet you, Matthew. Thanks for letting us. Thanks for being. Yeah, thanks for being such a good guy.
No sweat, man. I love it. No sweat. No sweat. You guys have an amazing day and enjoy the rest of your training today.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Everybody
so-
else,
Yeah.
we'll see you at 1 p.m. guys. Go have a good lunch. Thank you, Matthew, again. Get some good rest, guys. Use those bathrooms, get some food, and we will see you at 1 p.m. for public speaking.
Have fun, guys.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.